Good evening. Welcome everyone to Bad Fanfiction Live. My name is Mr Gamington-Smythe III. Welcome everyone to this part 2 of our foray into Hogwarts School of Prayer and Miracles. Where we last left off, we noticed that there were a lot of variations from the previous text that we're all so familiar with on this, the Day of Piccolo. And I see lots of people in the chat are celebrating the Day of Piccolo. But don't forget to celebrate on Thursday. Well, I wouldn't say celebrate, more like, be aware of. It's Android Day on Thursday at 10 AM. So, be sure to remember and all shout out in unison, "You guys! Androids!" And by the way, apparently it's Connor's birthday. Happy birthday, Connor. Happy birthday. Glad that you could make it for the stream, or not. If you're not here, then thank you very much for attending. So just 1 minute. Ah, yes. And thank you, 8 Melodies. 8 Melodies has provided you a chat link to the original source material. So thank you very much there. Sorry for the slight delay. I was dealing with some technical difficulties, but hopefully we should be all set for things right now. But anyway, I'd very much like to know, is this your first time at a Bad Fanfiction stream? If it is, then I do bid you welcome, and I thank you all for tuning in. You will find it to be a very, very friendly atmosphere here. We do not tolerate any bad behavior or any harassment of any sort. And our moderators, Andrea, July, Blaze, sorry, and Calliope, is it? Oh, sorry about that. It's been a very, very long day, but do let us know. Yes, so July. This is the bunker. So this, the chat is not, instead of the chat room, it is referred to as the bunker. But, anyway. Anywho, we shall waste no more time and get back into the meat of the story. But just before we do this, Calliope, sorry. Calliope. And 8 Melodies. Sorry, Calliope. It's been a very, very long day. You will not believe all the preparation I've been doing for Bad Fanfiction Theatre Season 4. I hope to be beginning shooting of that next week, and hopefully get the first episode out in time for the end of May. So, do look forward to that. And I do apologize, Melodies. Anywho. Oh, chat, don't make me feel guilty. I'm so sorry. So, I'm sorry, Melodies, anyway, but we should get the usual routine in that we shall do the Muffin Fund stream. So the Muffin Fund is slight tips. Yes, the Bunker's Bar. Make sure that Melodies gets free drinks for tonight. Drinks are on me, Melodies. But anyway, the Muffin Fund is there for any kind of tips that you are able to give. However big, however small, it doesn't matter. All pursuit in the best of pursuits of fanfiction. Anyway, whatever you can give, we very much appreciate it. Anyway, let us waste no time and get on to Chapter 8. If you begin to read the second paragraph of the author's notes, and it says, "Now, it is certainly true that what is written in the Bible about women was used as an excuse to actually be hateful towards women. And that is terrible. And there are some people out there who think all women are stupid or less than men. Friends, this is not what I believe at all. I believe that women have special gifts that are no less than men. In fact, I think that if womanly virtues were respected more, the world would be a much better place to live, and any of those so-called Christians who hate women and think women are stupid and worth less than men and that God doesn't respect us, well, they will all get a very serious talking to from a certain housewife. I will say that I do echo those sentiments. Gender is not a way of questioning equality. Gender, to me, doesn't matter. So long as you're a nice person, everyone should be equal in that sense. As long as you're a nice person, you can be whatever color, creed, gender, viewpoint. So long as you're a nice person, you're alright with Mr. Gamington-Smythe. Now, does that sound misogynistic to you? So, Harry Potter walked nervously over to the table of Mr. Snape. The other little ones wearing red and yellow hats did the same. Mr. Snape silently stood up, and he motioned with his head for the boys and girls to follow him, and he sauntered out of the great hall. He led them into a small classroom with a few desks in it. He silently motioned for the little ones to sit down at the desks. They did. He stood up at the blackboard in front of them. "Welcome to Hogwarts School of Prayer and Miracles," greeted the older but still handsome in a dignified, rugged way amicably. The little ones all sat in respectful attention. "So, you have all chosen the Gryffindor hat?" Mr. Snape queried, and he raised his eyebrow. "Yes, Mr. Snape," chorused all the students together. "Well," Mr. Snape said, and he drew his tall, strapping form up to its full impressive height, "I would like to say that your choosing will make you happy, or that your lives will be easy, but I will not lie. There are dark forces in the world, and they do not like Christians. When I say Christians, I mean Gryffindor hats. They love the Hufflepuff hats because the Hufflepuff hats believe everything these people say and slap the label Christian onto that philosophy. And so the Hufflepuff hats make it easier. The Ravenclaw hats, these people claim not to like, but then they pretend that the Ravenclaw hats' extremism applies to all Christians. So the Ravenclaw hats help them." Harry frowned confusedly. After Revan's acceptance of all the hats, he wondered why Mr. Snape was addressing things so directly. He found Mr. Snape's honesty refreshing, but he also wondered, was the honesty also combined with the hate for others that we had seen in Draco's hat? He thought the other hats were wrong, but he did not want Mr. Snape to hate them for being wrong. He wanted to help them. And then, of course, there's the Slytherin hats. The Slytherin hats will tell you we are all on the same side because they agree with Gryffindor hats on some things. But do not be fooled. Their leader is working with Voldemort. A shocked, horrified gasp echoed throughout the classroom. Harry slapped his hands over his mouth in an attempt to contain his horror, but he was still shocked. His new friend not only worshipped a goddess, but he was also now in cahoots with Voldemort. The little ones all gasped again. This time, they were even more horrified. From the back of the room, a clean-cut, respectably dressed young boy raised his hand. "But what about the Constitution?" Dean Thomas questioned articulately. "Doesn't he care about the First Amendment?" Mr. Snape shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid not. And Voldemort is working through him and using them all. Before long, all our freedoms will be gone." Dean Thomas raised his hand again and queried coherently, "But why does Voldemort hate Christians so much?" "Nobody knows," Mr. Snape responded tentatively. "However, he is on the move and he is gaining power, and we Gryffindor hats may be the only ones capable of stopping him. Now everybody turn to page 394. Harry was nervous, but he clenched his fist determinedly. He was scared, but he was ready to face this evil. Chapter 9. 1 week into the school year, Harry was gradually starting to get used to the everyday routines at Hogwarts School of Prayer and Miracles. There was breakfast in the Great Hall every morning, and then there was a prayer session led by the Reverend. The Slytherins went off to have their own prayer sessions in their own way, and the Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws prayed with the Gryffindors, but the Hufflepuffs complained about the Reverend quoting the Bible, and the Ravenclaws complained that the Reverend didn't seem to really hate sinners, he just hated sin. After the prayer sessions, the little ones all went to their classes. There was regular maths and English classes. Of course, although they were of a higher caliber than one would find in a public school, and then there were Bible studies and Christian history. After that was lunch in the Great Hall. After lunch were more classes about American history and constitutional law and missionary training. After these classes was dinner in the Great Hall, after which the students had free time. And not an ounce of magic and heresy to be seen. Shame. It was just such a dinner that Harry was eating now. He was sitting with his new friends, Hermione, Ronald, and Dean Thomas. "Oh, this food is certainly delicious," Harry observed gratefully, and he was savouring a bite of perfectly roasted chicken. "It really is," Dean Thomas concurred intelligently. He was dressed quite respectably today, and he was wearing a button-up shirt and clean blue jeans, and his hair was neatly combed. Hermione nodded in agreement, and the yellow bow she had tied her hair back with bounced up and down. Ronald grinned widely, but remained silent as he shoved another handful of deep-fried Brussels sprouts into his mouth. Ronald ate breakfast and lunch with his family, but he was eating more and more dinners with these Gryffindor friends of his. It never ceased to amaze him just how nice they were to him, even though he wore a different hat. A little unconditional friendship can really go a long way in a person's heart. It was then that a bunch of beautiful people with wings wearing glowing white robes swooped in through the Great Hall's huge windows. Yellow halos hovered over their heads, and they wore brown leather satchels around their shoulders. They gracefully reached into their satchels and gloriously flung envelopes down to the students below. "The mail's here," Dean Thomas observed accurately, and he shielded his eyes with his hand as he gazed up in wonder. Harry propped his chin up on his hand and dreamily watched these magnificent postmen distribute their wares. He did so love to look at angels. He was surprised when a letter fluttered down to him, and it landed lightly on the table in front of him. He had never gotten a letter before. He smiled innocently at the angel who had delivered it, and the angel waved back. "Would you look at that?" Dean Thomas uttered fluently. "You got a letter, Harry?" With excited hands, Harry broke the seal and took out the parchment that was inside the envelope. He laid it out on the table and saw the familiar, slanty, tidy handwriting. "Dear Harry, how are you enjoying your first week at Hogwarts? I hope you are enjoying it a lot. How about you come over for tea this evening after dinner, and you can tell me all about it. Hagrid." Harry smiled as he folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Good old Hagrid. "What does it say, Harry?" Hermione questioned shyly, and she played with one of her smooth, lovely curls. "Hagrid wants me to come over for tea," Harry reported excitedly. "Would you all like to join me?" "Well, I'd love to," Hermione replied sweetly. "That sounds like fun," Dean Thomas responded eloquently. "Could I come?" Ronald asked tentatively after he swallowed his Brussels sprouts. Harry, Hermione, and Dean Thomas exchanged a knowing look, and then Harry answered kindly. "Of course you can." Ronald smiled gratefully before going back to his Brussels sprouts. When dinner finished, Harry got to his feet and then declared boldly, "Let's go!" By the way, thank you very much, Jacob Griffin, for your tip. Very much appreciated. And he has the question, what is your favorite fanfiction that you've reviewed, and what are your favorite YouTubers? Well, I'm not one much with YouTube myself, but I believe that my MasakoX friend and lodger is actually... He does like a bit of Markiplier here and there, as well as some other tech tubers like Linus Tech Tips, Cadicarus, JonTron, Peanut Butter Gamer, and funny interesting. Masako and Peanut Butter Gamer used to actually frequent on the Voice Acting Alliance together. They once played the Hitachian twins in Oran High School Host Club. Very much good times, good times. But going back on to me, because it's about the evening. And my favorite fanfiction that I reviewed personally was Knuckles and the Fairy from Season 3. However, some Season 4 fanfictions out there are very interesting, and they might be in contesting for that top spot. We'll have to see. Coming up in later this month. But anyway, thank you, Jacob. And if you wish to send a tip for yourself, be sure to check the link here at bit.ly/themuffinfund. So, any tips would be very much appreciated. But we must get on to Chapter 10. Dangerous days are here. Hagrid lived in a lovely little house on the edge of the Hogwarts campus. The little ones arrived right on time, and the delicious smell of tea and cookies was wafting outside. Smelling in anticipation, they knocked on the door. Hagrid opened the door and beamed down at them. "Welcome, Harry. I'm so glad you could come. And you brought friends." "Indeed I did," Harry said, and gestured to the upstanding young fellow to his left. "This is Dean Thomas, a Gryffindor hat." "Pleased to meet you," Dean Thomas said intelligently. Hagrid smiled at the little one, impressed. "This is Hermione, another Gryffindor hat," Harry said, motioning towards the girl to his right. Hermione smiled shyly and waved. Charmed, Hagrid waved back. "And this is Ronald," Harry said. Ronald looked up sheepishly from where he stood behind the trio. He could sense that Hagrid was truly a man of the Lord, in a way that no one in his family, or perhaps the entire Slytherin hat was. To be in the presence of such piety was humbling for a little one such as this. Hagrid noticed the green and black hat, but didn't comment. Instead, with true mercy and compassion, he opened the door wide to all of them. "Glad to meet all of you. Please, come in." The 4 little ones filed in. The inside of Hagrid's house was tastefully decorated. Curtains were plaid, the walls were wood, and a bear rug covered the floor in front of the fireplace. Mounted above the mantelpiece, in a place of pride for all to see, was a moose's head. The oaken table in the center of the kitchen was set for 5, and the kettle on the stove was just starting to sing. "This is a nice place you have," Harry commented. "It really is," Dean Thomas said intelligently. Hagrid grinned with pride. "Well, thank you. I live by John 15:19, of course, but I do try to keep it tidy." Harry, Dean Thomas, and Hermione nodded knowingly. In a few minutes, they were all seated at the table, while Hagrid passed out his famous chocolate chip cookies. They munched on the delicious morsels as Hagrid poured the tea. "How's school going, Harry?" Hagrid asked. "Quite well," Harry replied. Just then, the timer buzzed. "More cookies!" the little ones cried in delight, and as Hagrid got up to get them. What, no praying? While Hagrid was getting the cookies, Harry's eyes fell on a newspaper Hagrid had left open. The headline on the front page read, "Voldemort spotted at Hogwarts." "Oh, would you look at that?" Dean Thomas murmured observantly, picking up the paper and scanning it. As he read, he whispered the article's terrible words. "Voldemort was spotted by several students yesterday at Hogwarts School of Prayer and Miracles. This is the man who was trying to put a bill through to Congress to stop Christians from practicing their beliefs. If passed, homeschooling will be illegal. Christians will be put in jail, maybe even killed. Unless they say the Bible says what Voldemort wants it to say, saying, 'Merry Christmas,' or hanging up the 10 Commandments will put you in a re-education program." When Dean Thomas was finished, Hermione burst into tears. Harry gave her hair an innocent, friendly pat. "How could anyone be so angry at God?" Hermione sobbed. "Well, I don't know," Harry declared tentatively. "He's a horrible person." Dean Thomas nodded sagely and muttered to himself in disgust. "First they tried to change the Pledge of Allegiance. Now they don't want us to be Christians. Next they'll be killing us all. It's a bad time to be a true Christian in America." Ronald sat in guilty silence as he watched his new friends fearing for the future. He was beginning to wonder just what sort of hat it was that he had chosen. Da da da. Right. I shall get on actually read this paragraph of the notes. Because another thing that I've gotten many messages about this is the Slytherins. People are saying that somehow this means I hate Catholics. Friends, I do not hate Catholics at all. All I want is for Catholics and everybody else to go to heaven and be happy with God. Do you want to know who truly hates Christians? The so-called Catholic Church. Ironic, But think about it. Why else would they lie to Catholics about salvation? And did you know their leader is a socialist? It seems like a certain someone doesn't know much about the Bible or the Constitution. About what there is only being one God and no others. So, if any Catholics are reading this, I am asking you this in love. Consider which is more important, your so-called religion or the truth. The truth is, there's more fanfiction to be read. I shall expunge that truth. Harry, Hermione, Dean Thomas, and Ronald all walked solemnly back to the main campus. They could hardly believe what they had just read. Voldemort? On my campus? What would they do if they ran into him? They quickly went to their dorms and got to sleep. The next morning, the four little ones sat together for breakfast. The spread today was truly delicious. Fluffy scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, home fries, grits, waffles, apples, orange juice, and iced tea. The blessings today truly were abundant. I still can't believe Voldemort has been seen on our own campus, Harry whispered after swallowing a bite of bacon. Well, neither can I, Dean Thomas commented perceptibly. I'm scared, Hermione murmured and fidgeted with her fork. What if he tries to kill Harry? It will be fine, Harry declared boldly, and then gave her hand a reassured squeeze, and they both blushed. What are the four of you gossiping about? A voice said, and it was smug and it came from behind them. Harry turned around and he saw Draco standing behind them. Draco's hands were folded and rested on his stomach. Behind him stood the two other young men, dressed the same as Draco Tan. Draco Tan. No, not Draco Tan. The same as Draco. Tan pants, brown sweater vests, and white button-up shirts. We were just discussing something we read in the newspaper, Harry said we were just discussing something we read in the newspaper, Harry said friendlily. Would you like to join us? Draco chortled pompously. I think not. You may be comfortable dining with women outside of your family, but I'm not. I know that I'm better than women. Why would I want to talk to one? Harry gritted his teeth. He had had enough of this. So-called feminists these days call everything sexist. A man respecting his woman and providing for her and giving her the children and home that she truly desires is called women-hating. Such silliness can make us forget what real sexism looks like. The truth is, women are just as smart as men, and God made us as their equals. But equal does not mean the same. And when we treat men and women as being the same, and tell women to go to work all day and forget about her true calling as a wife and mother, then that is the real woman-hating. And then there are people like Draco, who think that God messed up and made women worse than men, and neither is okay. That is a mean thing to say, Harry screamed bravely, and he banged his fists on the table so hard that the plates bounced. Mr. Snape looked over in their direction, and he saw the commotion that was going on at the moment. He was dressed very dapperly today, in his freshly packed pressed dress shirt, and practical pants that complemented his long, muscular legs perfectly. Above the top button of his shirt, a hint of the thick carpet underneath was visible. He carried with him a big, heavy King James version of the Bible, as he sauntered across the cafeteria. What exactly is going on here? He questioned, folding his arms over his chest. Nothing, Draco muttered in an embarrassed voice of no one who knows what he's done wrong. But Harry boldly and honestly retorted, Draco was being a bully to the ladies. With a gasp, Greg covered his mouth with his delicate, long-fingered hands. Detention, Draco. We as Christians must be respectful of women and treat them with the gentleness they deserve as our mothers and sisters and daughters. Mr. Snape grabbed Draco's wrist and led him out of the cafeteria. Harry smiled holily at the sanctimonious fool. Draco shook his fist. I'll get you for this, Potter. Tonight after dinner, in the courtyard, we will have a pray-off. Da. That's very interesting. I got a tip from Charles Darwin here. Charles Darwin commands tips for Mr Gamington-Smythe. Wait, aren't I dead? It's very interesting. Charles Darwin coming back from the grave. Bit unorthodox. But anyway, whoever you are, thank you very much. But anyway, we must get on with chapter 12. The campus was dark when Harry, Hermione, Dean Thomas, and Ronald walked out of their dormitories. It was completely silent, because all the other little ones were asleep. The bright, shining stars twinkled approvingly at the righteous young Christian trio. I'm nervous, Ronald uttered shakily. Isn't this against the rules? Harry, Dean Thomas, and Hermione exchanged a knowing look. It wasn't Ronald's fault. It was just how he had been raised. Slytherin hats do not usually question authority. They think that they just need to do what the head of Slytherin hats tell them to do. They never think that maybe the Lord's work is important. This is the Lord's work, Harry explained patiently. This is more important. Well, that's right, Dean Thomas said wisely, and not a single word was mispronounced. He had dressed quite respectfully for the occasion. His face was scrubbed quite cleanly. Any mummy would be proud to have him for her son. Oh, Ronald murmured wonderingly. He had never thought that they could be doing anything more important than following rules. Not even the Lord's work. Ronald was starting to ask the big questions. Questions which just might lead him to salvation. Just think, what would have happened if Harry had not known to love the sin and not the sinner? Just then, Draco stepped out from behind a tree. He was wearing yet another sweater vest, and he was proudly sporting a Ravenclaw hat. Boo! Not a true Ravenclaw! Well, well, Potter, Draco drawled smugly. Looks like you came to the pray-off after all. That's right, Harry answered courageously. Well then, Draco grinned self-righteously. Let us pray. Harry and Draco got down on their knees and raised their hands to the sky. I'll go first, because God loves me best, Draco declared confidently. With that, he shouted, Dear Lord, if you agree with me that women are stupid and Potter is wrong, please strike him down where he kneels. Dean Thomas and Ronald gasped. Hermione began to cry. But Harry did not flinch. He knew that he was a man of the Lord. Draco grinned viciously as he looked to the sky for a bolt of lightning. But none came. His eyes widened and his jaws dropped. He began to cry. Now it was Harry's turn to pray. He raised his hands far higher than Draco's had been, and he screamed in a voice far louder than Draco's had ever been. Dear Lord, if you agree with me that women are just as good as men, but just different, please. For a second he thought about asking for Draco to be struck down, but then he was overcome with mercy. Please make him a Gryffindor hat. In that moment, the hat on Draco's head changed into a red and yellow one with a lion on it, and the tears rolling down his face were not sad tears. They were happy tears. The crowd of onlookers burst into applause, but Harry did not notice all the cheering students and teachers. He was bathing in the love of the Lord. Penultimate chapter there, everyone. I do believe this is going to be slightly shorter than usual, but do thank us. And 2 more chapters to go. The cheering crowd converged on the 2 righteous boys. They were led by Dean Thomas, Hermione, and Ronald. Hermione reached Harry first. Joyful tears were streaming down her face, and her lacy pink shirt was swirling around her legs. When she reached Harry, she wrapped her delicate arms around him in a chaste hug. I was so scared, she whispered tearfully. Harry pulled away and patted her reassuringly. He told her, There is nothing to be afraid of, not when we are on the side of righteousness. Hermione grinned admiringly. She exclaimed, You're so brave. Harry smiled humbly and blushed and rubbed the back of his neck like a shy schoolboy. He didn't know why, but he felt so different around her than other people. Perhaps it was because she was so godly. But Harry felt that it might be more than admiration that he felt. What was the word? He could not put quite his finger on it. Dean Thomas stepped forward and gave him a very polite handshake. "Amazing job out there," he commented intelligently. Harry smiled humbly. "It was the work of a power greater than my own." Dean Thomas shook his head in admiration at how humble Harry was being. Truly, a light was shining in this little one. Ronald was next in line. Tears were streaming down his face and his nose was running down to his chin. He wiped his face with a big freckled hand. He stuck out the other one for Harry to shake. Harry generously returned the action. "That was amazing," Ronald sobbed honestly. "How do I be as holy as you?" Harry, Dean Thomas, and Hermione exchanged a knowing look. "Maybe," they suggested, "it has something to do with the hat on your head." Ronald got a thoughtful look on his face. His many siblings that were too many for two parents to care for did not like the look of that. Altogether, they walked over and grabbed Ronald and pulled him away. Harry, Dean Thomas, and Hermione were sad, but they hoped in their hearts that their words of truth would plant seed and grow. But before they could think too much about that, a car pulled into the parking lot. It did not look like the car of a busy mommy or daddy would have. No. This was a so-called eco-friendly car. Harry, Dean Thomas, and Hermione looked at it suspiciously. They did not know who would come out of it, but they got the feeling it would not be someone good. The car stopped. The door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall and pale-skinned. He was a younger man, with only a thin layer of hair hidden underneath his shirt. He was wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants and sneakers. No one seemed to take much notice of him. But then the Reverend's wife stepped onto the scene. She screamed. She fainted. At the sound of her cry for help, the Reverend Dumbledore came running to the rescue. So many so-called pro-women's rights people think that Ephesians 5:22-25 is just about wives being submissive. What they don't talk about is that it also tells husbands to sacrifice for their wives. Wow, does that sound oppressive? When he saw the man who had gotten out of the car, he stopped and gasped, and then he shouted, "Stand back, students! This is Voldemort himself!" Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it? Voldemort actually cares for the environment. I would love to see a picture of Voldemort driving a Prius. That would be absolutely hilarious. But anyway, we are now on to the final chapter, my dear viewers. And for this one, I shall read the author's notes. "Hello, friends. I have some news, and I know that it might be disappointing to the mummies out there. My husband and I had a very long talk last night, and he doesn't think that my posting my writing online and going to classes is a good idea for our family. It was a hard decision for me to accept, but he does know best. And, Andrea, I do know that you will draw your absolute splendidly. I would very much like to see it on Twitter. Very much appreciated. But he does know best. I want to thank all of the many righteous believers who have supported me in this little mission of mine, and I hope that this last chapter ties up the loose ends as best as one chapter can." Harry gasped, and Dean Thomas gasped too, and Hermione burst into tears as Voldemort ambled through the parking lot. The enormous crowds of righteous students were nervous, but they stood boldly in the face of such horrifying evil. I hope that this last chapter ties up the loose... Dumbledore stood in front of them, protectively and manfully. Harry looked at the depraved man walking toward them, and he thought all of the lies that he must have been told by evolutionists and feminists all his life, and he thought of the empty, meaningless depravedness that he would have had to distract him from that missing love in his life, and he thought of how one day he would die, and that there would be no happy heaven for him, only the flames of hell. Harry wondered how anyone could be so stupid. Who would want hell more than heaven? It made Harry so angry. Voldemort stopped walking when he was in front of the Reverend Dumbledore. He arrogantly nodded and said, "Hey, my name's Tom Riddle, and I'm here to visit my cousin. Which way is the guy's dorm? Enough of your lies, Dumbledore exclaimed bravely. We know who you are. Voldemort blinked stupidly, and then he uttered childishly, I'm sorry. What? Dumbledore smiled smartly. You're pretending to be dumb, I see, son. Well, I'm not stupid. We all know about how much you hate Christians. What? No! I don't hate Christians! Voldemort lied dishonestly. What are you even talking about? You're still pretending to be dumb, son, the Reverend pointed out truthfully. We all know about your plot to illegalize Christianity, Voldemort. Voldemort blinked stupidly again and questioned evilly. Wait, this is about my Reddit account? Is that what you call your godless coven? Dumbledore queried knowingly. Well, yes, I have indeed seen your so-called Reddit account, and just try to deny your hatred of Christianity when you post things like this Christians all sucks. Their religion is stupid and should be illegal. I will write to Congress and tell them to make a law. Harry Potter laughed unintelligently, because Voldemort did not even understand proper spelling and grammar. That was a joke, Voldemort retorted intelligently. That whole account is a joke, I mean, Voldemort, the righteous skeptic. He laughed with the nervousness of one who knows he is damned. Of course you're not supposed to take it seriously. Do you think religion is a laughing matter, young man? Dumbledore demanded righteously. Well, it is not. What sort of a joke is trying to outlaw religion? Of course I don't actually want to outlaw religion, Voldemort uttered deceptively. That would be ridiculous. I just got annoyed by the ridiculous straw man some Christians have made out of atheism, so whenever I see someone ranting about how depraved and evil we non-believers are, I reply with something like that. You know, taking that stereotype to an extreme to point out how ridiculous it is. Also, a small but vocal minority of atheists exists that stereotypes and mocks anyone who disagrees with them. They can be just as hateful as people think we all are, and that does real damage. They bug me as much as the straw man arguments do, and they give those arguments credibility. So I do the same thing to them, replying with an extreme version of what they said to highlight the absurdity of it. So, y'all making fun of atheism? Dumbledore interrogated shrewdly. No, I am an atheist, Voldemort explained sinfully. I'm just as I thought. Dumbledore surmised wisely. He smiled holily in satisfaction that the Lord had worked through him. We have been preparing for this day, and we've been preparing it for a long time. Students, the holy little ones stood at attention. Convert him, Dumbledore commanded bravely, and all at once the students began to shout. You have been tricked by the lies of society, Harry shrieked knowingly. You deserve to burn in hell. Come over here, Dean Thomas screamed articulately. Debate me on religion. I'm just so upset you don't accept the Bible, Hermione sobbed femininely. The Bible is the best book ever. Why can't you just respect that? I'm a Gryffindor hat now, Draco yelled boldly with the inspiring zeal that so many newcomers to the faith have. Do you hate me now? I bet you do. Voldemort covered his ears with the discomfort that heathens often find themselves with when they are confronted with the truth. And he shouted loudly to drown out the word of the Lord. You have been preparing to do this, to scream at me? It is the work of our Lord, Dumbledore explained accurately. Aren't there better ways to spend your time than preaching to a bored idiot who makes fun of people on the internet? Voldemort questioned hedonistically. Your lord seemed to be pretty concerned about helping the people around him. Is that not his work anymore? How can we focus on helping people when there are people like you trying to destroy us? Dumbledore countered astutely. I told you before that Reddit account is a joke, Voldemort whined pathetically, but the Reverend shook his head. I thought that might be so at first, the Reverend commented fairly, but it was just too realistic. How was it realistic? Voldemort inquired uninformedly. It wasn't even subtle. I waxed poetic about the sexiness of neckbeards and said that Christopher Hitchens has superpowers. It was supposed to be funny. How could you take it seriously? Dumbledore scoffed, and he replied faithfully, like it or not, your little joke is what most atheists today are like. So my Reddit account solidified your conceptions of atheists as a bunch of anti-Christian bigots who are just angry at God? Voldemort solicited stupidly, and then he sighed. Okay, you know what? This has gone too far. Way too far. I'm sure that most people can tell that I'm not being serious, but if I'm contributing to misinformation and stereotypes, I don't feel comfortable continuing this. Voldemort pulled an iPhone out of his pocket, and he began to type on it. After a few minutes, he showed the screen to Dumbledore. See this? I just made a post. I am a troll. It is the last post I will make on that account. Are you happy? Dumbledore virtuously ignored the heretic, and he turned to the little ones standing behind his protection. Students of Hogwarts, this fool will not listen to reason. Let us save this heathen's soul. All the little ones got down on their knees, and they raised their hands to the sky, and they screamed to the heavens in the voices of those who knew they were doing great work. Lord, please make Voldemort a Gryffindor hat. Voldemort sighed wickedly, and he shook his head godlessly, and then he walked away depravedly. But, even as the fornicating, drug-addicted evolutionist disappeared into the distance, the righteous little ones continued to pray. They knew that, if they screamed loud enough, they could change the world. The end. Well, my dear viewers, that was certainly very interesting. And oh goodness, I do believe that's... Well, viewers, that was indeed a very enjoyable little tale. I must say, I did have enjoyed time reading it. But I do find it very unappreciative about the fact that Harry Potter, as great a fiction as it is, has been kind of changed in a way that seems very unaccommodating. But in any case, this is just the opinion of one. Blazy Blake says, Blaze and the fornicating evolutionists. Red Eye says, thank you for reading to us. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. I very much appreciate it. Calliope says, I'd see you in concert. Well, thank you very much. And a blob of clay says, remember folks, interesting does not equal quite to good. Sebastian Picken makes the point, it's been bastardized so many times by lonely housewives and horny teenage girls, XD. But anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. And next week, I shall try and find another 3-part fanfiction. I do absolutely love these things. So if you have a bad fanfiction about 10 to 15,000 words, do send it to my chappy friend MasakoX on his Twitter, which you can see right here. And be sure to send the link and what you think of it. And who knows, your suggestion might make it onto next week's Bad Fanfiction Live. Until then, toodle pip and good night.